order. And I think you can tell from our little banners here that we have a quorum present, so we can continue. According to my sheet, we do not have any visitors present, or do we? We do.
Well, you know I'm not a visitor.
I was thinking.
Jason Dietrich, who is our Director of Educational Partnerships with ETS, is here with us today and will be working with my team this week, but he is here with us. So.
Glad to have you with us today. And I don't believe we have any media present. No media present. If you have had an opportunity to look at the minutes from the April 7th meeting, do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the April 7th committee meeting?
So moved, Trent.
There's no objection for us to approve these minutes. No one is objecting to that. Therefore, we will approve them by unanimous consent. Look at the agenda, if you have not, for today. Is there any objection to approving this agenda as presented? If none, then it's approved by unanimous consent. I do not have any names for public comment. Therefore, we'll move right on into our committee items. We have 2 items today for approval. The first is the Clemson University New Educator Preparation Program in Science Teaching, and Dr. McLee will talk to us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy May. So I am before you today to present 2 programs, and they're going to be presented together. They're packaged for you together. It's a BS in Teaching Chemistry and a BS in Teaching Physics, both coming to us from Clemson University. Both programs would lead to initial teaching licensure in chemistry or physics, so that would then allow the candidate completers to teach in a high school classroom grades 9 to 12. Now, you might be asking yourself, doesn't Clemson already prepare candidates to teach chemistry and physics? And the answer to that is yes, they do. But those programs are a BA, a Bachelor's of Arts, and what we're doing or addressing here today is a Bachelor's of Science. So the BA programs that lead to chemistry and physics teacher certification at Clemson are different. First of all, the BA in Teaching Physics and the BA in Teaching Chemistry are double major or dual programs, meaning that candidates who enroll in the BA in Teaching Chemistry also have to major in the BA in Chemistry program, and the candidates who enroll in the BA in Teaching Physics program also have to enroll in the BA in Physics program. And the reason why that is because it's a Clemson rule. It's a Clemson policy that candidates have to double major. Additionally, candidates pursuing a BA degree have to take anywhere from 6 to 14 credit hours in modern languages. So Clemson, in a desire to kind of streamline the approach to getting candidates through quicker, which would then get them certified quicker and get them placed in our public schools quicker to teach our kids, created this BS kind of new programs, both in teaching chemistry and teaching physics. What those new programs, the BS programs, would do is it eliminates that dual major qualification, and it also reduces those modern language requirements. So those new program proposals were brought to us at the agency in August of 2025. At that point, we went through our normal protocol, executing the external peer review team. And it's interesting to note, out of the 28 EPPs in our state currently, only 3 out of the 28 offer physics and chemistry, and an additional 4 EPPs offer physics. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Only 3 out of the 28 offer physics and chemistry, and another 4 offer physics or chemistry. So this program proposal came to us. We were able to create an external peer review team. They were able to look at the program proposal. In general, they were very happy with the program proposal because the infrastructure is there from the EPP level because they already have the BA program in existence. There was one kind of question that the team had for Clemson, and that was just to get the listing of all the upper level chemistry and physics courses and those catalog descriptions from the university. Once Clemson came back to the team with those catalog descriptions, the team was very happy with the program proposal, moved it forward to the PRC. PRC was very happy with the program proposal. They reviewed it in early 2026, and that then brings the program proposal here in front of you. So with all of that background information out of the way, I'd love to take any questions that you have.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The ones taking the BS courses, are they still education students?
Yes, sir. So Clemson is going to keep the BS in teaching and science, chemistry, and physics, that's the new program, but they're also going to keep the BA program as well. So they're going to offer two.
So there's not as much difference in the courses as there is the fact that one of them's in the BS curriculum and the other's in the BA curriculum.
Yes, sir. There is a difference in the curriculum, and the content area coursework is very similar between both, but you're seeing that reduction in the modern world languages and a reduction in the overall credit hours as well.
I would just like to add a comment. I was excited to see this proposal. I was in Orangeburg, Calhoun, serving Orangeburg and Calhoun counties for 15 years. Not a single feeder school was able to provide physics instruction. I got involved in Project Lead the Way simply to get baby physics to those students before they came to us. It's a critical area, and I was excited to see it because removing those roadblocks will encourage more students to go that route, I think. And I don't mean that languages are a roadblock because I'm a liberal arts person, but I do know that students are anxious to get through, and if they will probably put more emphasis on completing the science requirements.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question? Even though I'm not on this committee, I'm a little bit confused.
Yes,
ma'am. And looking at the projected enrollment, it's almost non-existent over the next several years. And so I guess I'm wondering why they wouldn't just go switch to the BS if they feel like that's more attractive to students, and I understand that, but I just don't understand why they would keep both.
And I think that's a logical question. So before the program proposals came to us at the agency, they did go through CHE, the Commission on Higher Education, and so the Commission on Higher Education was able to vet them, and they approved the program proposals. That's an excellent question. We can ask the EPP that question if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm just curious. It just because I know that some universities, some degrees, for instance, degrees in the humanities, oftentimes education degrees are going to be might be BAs, and those in the sciences might be BS degrees for this exact reason. So I guess I just don't understand why they would want to retain both. I actually think the BS makes more sense. And it's not a stumbling block, I don't guess. It's just a curiosity for me.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not on this committee either, but I have a question. I was glad to hear you say that they're going to decrease the total credit hours that are required. And so that should decrease a little bit of the student debt as well for these teachers. That is one of my biggest concerns about new teachers coming in, with where our starting salary has gotten a lot better, but still, having to pay back student loans for a long time is not easy. We got to figure out how to make that easier and cheaper for our students, for our student teachers.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you.
Are there other questions?
Does Clemson have any sort of thoughts about the fact that if you change to this BS degree, put it more science focused, will there be opportunities either with promise programs that are around the state or scholarships or student loan forgiveness or something like that? Because it sounds like the BS really is going to more mirror what if you got a bachelor's degree in chemistry or a bachelor's degree in physics or whatever. It's probably going to make them more of a well-rounded individual. I mean, great if they go into teaching, and that's what we want them to do. But if they don't, it sounds like they've got a little bit more ability to get, employment in some other field as well, possibly. So
Absolutely.
yeah. If I'm mom and dad, I might say, well, I think you'd steer you into this one. Like he said, save a little bit of money too there. That might be the option to go. But I'm just surprised how they would be able to keep both the BA degree and the BS. It sounds like they would have more people flock into this major. But.
Okay, any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the Clemson University New Educator Preparation Program in Science Teaching?
Make a motion to approve the program as presented.
Board Member Trent made the motion. Do I have a second?
Haney, second.
Who's that?
Haney,
Who's that to it?
second.
Mr. Haney made the second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. The motion carries. Okay, our second item for approval today is the South Carolina Certification Assessment Program for 26-27 changes. Of course, there are changes. Mary Hipp.
I
is here.
come back every year about this time with updates to our certification assessment program.
Just when we figure it out.
I know. Well, hopefully we're going to do a little streamlining
Okay.
here. I am likely to come back one more time over the summer with an additional adoption in physical education. But that's part of the work that Jason and I will do this week, is making a decision regarding that. So we're really here to talk today about literacy assessments and assessments for certification in elementary education. And sort of the context here is the fact that in 2024, the General Assembly substantially modified the Read to Succeed Act. And with that substantial revision to the act, literacy instruction in the state now focuses on, scientific principles of reading instruction and foundational literacy skills. And I think all of you are familiar with the considerable work over the last few years, the Palmetto Literacy Project, the implementation of LETRS, professional development for teachers. At the pre-service level, our programs have been engaged over the last 18 months in the substantial overhaul of their literacy courses, again, to align with the science of reading and the updated South Carolina literacy competencies. So there's been work there, and we'll actually have an update later in the summer for you on the work that our EPPs have done to realign their courses. One of the components in the revised act is the requirement effective September 1, 2026 of a literacy assessment for initial certification in early childhood, elementary, and special education. And so that's part of the reason that we're here today requesting some changes to our certification program or assessment program in literacy. So we're making the recommendation to adopt 2 assessments as options for candidates in early childhood, elementary, and special education fields. The first option is Praxis 5205, Teaching Reading Elementary. Our recommendation for a passing score on that assessment is 159. That is the value of the multi-state standard setting study that was conducted when this assessment was implemented. That's the same score that is used for initial certification in the 16 states that currently use that assessment. So that is one option that we recommend adoption of. The second is adopting Pearson 890, Foundations of Reading. This assessment is used in 19 states, and there's actually some overlap between states. We're not the only state that uses or recommends adopting both of these. The passing score we recommend for initial certification on foundations of reading is 233 with an endorsement score of 240. Benefit in having both assessments is we bring in a fair number of candidates from other states who've done teacher preparation programs in other states. So if a candidate has taken, let's say, Pearson 890, the Foundations of Reading test for the state of Arkansas, I want to be able to accept that score here. It doesn't make any sense to make that candidate go take 5205. So we believe this is the right paradigm to have, an option for these candidates in early childhood, elementary, and special education. So this is the first request today. The second is looking at something we already have in place. So another provision in the Read to Succeed Act as it was amended was the tests that we use for initial certification have to be available for in-service teachers to earn that literacy teacher endorsement. So in October 2024, we actually came before you to adopt these two tests for that purpose. So we worked a little in arrears because of the timing of the legislation and the timing of the initial certification component. So again, for the endorsement, we now use Praxis 5205. Currently, that cut score is 159. For the endorsement, we recommend raising the cut score to 165. That is one standard error measure above the initial certification score. The thought there, this is for teachers who are in service, who have done training to advance their skills in literacy. So we do recommend the enhanced or the increased score for the purpose of the endorsement. Again, for initial certification, we recommend that 159. The test option 2, we already use 240 as the cut score for Foundations of Reading, so we don't recommend any change there. Question on that paradigm? Yes?
Mary, so this assessment is given while they are in their coursework?
So if at the pre-service level, so if we're talking about a student that's going through a preparation program, let's say in early childhood, really our colleges and universities ask candidates to take tests at different times. Some may ask them to take it before student teaching, but for our purposes as a state licensing authority, we require it at the point of certification. So typically candidates, though, would be asked to take an assessment like this after all that literacy coursework or during student teaching because they are still learning and gaining knowledge and skills during that student teaching semester.
So are we saying that current certified teachers, nothing?
No. Current
Okay.
certified teachers, remember, are teachers now working in early childhood, elementary, and special education already have that requirement of the literacy endorsement.
Right.
So they've been engaged in substantial professional development over the last few years to enhance their literacy skills.
So they don't have to go back and take?
They do not have to go back and take this assessment.
Okay.
This is sort of the moving forward. Again, this
Okay.
requirement kicks in September
Okay.
1. Many other states already have an assessment of this kind in place. And I know you work with a fair number of other states
Yeah.
that have that
Yeah.
assessment in place already.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Had you informed superintendents of this so that they can inform? But
Oh,
then
yes.
that's not really an issue because it's
It's
at the
not an
college
issue for
level.
in-service teachers, unless you have an in-service teacher that instead of, let's say, doing the 4 professional development courses, wants to earn the endorsement through an assessment. That
Okay.
is an option, because again, the legislation said one of the options for earning that endorsement had to be these exams. So,
Okay.
I have
getting
a-
our ducks in a row.
I
Yeah.
have a
How about that?
question.
So,
Yeah.
Where
good.
are we in the process of accrediting all these? I mean, how many have had training? Are there any early childhood or early education, childhood education staff, teachers that have not finished their training in letters?
Abby, do you want to address that?
And what's the goal?
Yes. So our goal was to roll letters training out to kindergarten through third grade teachers statewide. Last fall, all of our final cohorts of teachers began that work. And so what we are doing now is looking forward as new teachers join us, as teachers come in from out of state. But if none of our teachers left, if none of our teachers moved, all of our teachers at the time last fall started that 2-year engagement in letters. So we're sitting at about 20,000 teachers statewide who have completed the training.
So you're expecting in 2 years for them all to be at that level?
We'll continue to offer the training, and then we also have that sustainability plan that we've talked about before, where we have trained local facilitators. So if districts want to continue offering letters to new hires, they will be able to do that in-house.
So do all schools of education require a graduate to get this certification before in that category?
So all pre-service programs now need to prepare students for success on this exam.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm glad Abby actually answered one of my questions, so that was good. Thank you. And then my other question, Mary, is if we increase if we make that adjustment up to 165 and a student doesn't quite cut the mustard on that, doesn't quite get there, what remediation is available to them and when can they retake
That's a
it?
great question. So for initial certification, let's say you have a student that comes out of a program and makes a 162 on the assessment. That candidate is going to get certified in early childhood. At the in-service level, that candidate still has to earn the endorsement because those are requirements that are in place in our Read to Succeed guidelines. So they still have to engage in professional development. As they get into classroom practice, they're going to learn a great deal. Then they will have multiple options at the in-service level for earning that endorsement. They can earn it through letters. They can earn it through approved professional development that's aligned to science of reading, or they could take the test again if they chose that option.
And so do we here at the department, or is this something that the district would be more likely to do to advise them, hey, these are the areas where you're weakest and these are the areas
Yes.
where you should take more development?
And that's what we hope is going to happen at the in-service level, is these candidates get in and they have a mentor, they go through the induction process and summative evaluation process. They're going to be exposed to that professional development, and we want districts guiding them to kind of pursue the areas where they need that additional preparation.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so those are our literacy assessments. Elementary is the next component. Oh, goodness. So currently, all right, that was a big sigh, Dr. Johnson. So currently, our candidates pursuing certification in elementary on the subject area assessment have 4 subtests to demonstrate content knowledge. It's a subtest in reading language arts, math, science, and social studies. Previously, this board has approved the Praxis 5000 series, multiple subjects, and the Praxis 7811 series, content knowledge for teaching, as the options for candidates to take those 4 subtests. So with elementary, we have the ability here to do a little swap out, and that's one of the recommendations we have. So Praxis 8000 is the new series in elementary ed that just launched in March. We do recommend going ahead and adopting that series. But we also recommend eliminating those current subtests in reading language arts and replacing them with the reading assessment. It does not, to me, make sense to have them take a reading and language arts subtest and then a full test of reading instruction. So for our elementary candidates, we actually can remove a subtest and replace it with this new assessment in reading. So that is the change that we were recommending here. So I've summarized the changes that you have on that chart. Let me kind of advance ahead, and I think this may make it a little clearer where we're moving in terms of how we think about assessments in early childhood, elementary, and special education. So currently, we really have content or assessments in two categories: subject area content and pedagogy. With the requirement in the Read to Succeed Act, we now have three categories of assessments. We have a subject area content test, we have a subject area assessment in reading, and we have a pedagogy assessment. So for candidates in early childhood, this will be an additional assessment for them. So they will still have the option of two possibilities on the subject or the content. They'll have the option of two assessments for reading. They already have two options for pedagogy. So those will be the options in place in early childhood. Elementary, where we're moving, is that there will be a subtest in math, science, and social studies. There will be a reading assessment, and that will be one either 5205 to Praxis Teaching Reading Elementary or Pearson's Foundations of Reading, and then they have the pedagogy assessment. So again, we've been able to build in options on the subtests, options on the reading assessment, options on the pedagogy assessment. Same paradigm with our special education assessments. The content assessment for special education is going to be tailored to that particular field. So if it's special education multi-cat, there's a specific assessment for that. Or special education learning disabilities, there's a specific assessment for that content. They will then have the reading, and they will also have a pedagogy option. So that's where we're headed. This is one of the more complicated requests for changes I've brought to you in the last few years. But we're, again, trying to align our elementary assessments with tests that actually address science of reading, math assessments that, if you remember Dr. Schumpert talking with you recently about that kind of paradigm with mathematics instruction from concrete to representational to abstract. The new math assessments here, these subtests align with that as well. So again, some streamlining on those elementary assessments. Dr. Mathis.
So, Mary, if I'm a elementary major to be certified, want to get certified in elementary ed, walk me through how many tests I need to take.
You will have 5.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. So I'm going to take,
And you currently have 5.
right, okay.
It's just we've switched one out. For early childhood right now, you have 2. But with the legislative mandate for the reading assessment, those candidates will now have 3. Special ed, most of those candidates will now have 3. We have a couple of fields in special education where they actually have 2 subject area assessments. We're very mindful of cost and realize that that is a concern for our candidates. Part of the work that we will do with ETS is on options on bundling those elementary subtests because that does give candidates access to those at a slightly decreased cost. But that certainly is a factor in all of this. All right.
I will say, I'm glad to see the options for out-of-state teachers that you accept
Yes.
a test that they've already taken. I think that's going to be a plus for recruitment. Now, more on a praxis conversation in multiple areas. Have we ever explored this option that other states use? I think it's called the Bridge program. If they miss it by 1 point, they can take a module and kind of pass that module, make up for that 1 point.
So kind of 2 thoughts here. So on this particular elementary series that I'm asking you to adopt today, the Praxis 8000, later this year, that series will be enabled with what ETS is calling their STEPS program. So that would allow, let's say a candidate takes the math subtest and does not earn a passing score on it. With the STEPS, or it's a modular component or design to that assessment, candidates would be able to take the portion of the assessment that they did not succeed on and not have to repeat the entire subtest. Praxis Bridge, do you want to address talk about a little bit about Bridge? Okay. Jason can kind of speak a little bit more to Bridge. Bridge is an option for a candidate that scores within one standard error of measure below on an assessment.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Jason Dietrich for the record. So with Praxis Bridge, we currently have around 15 assessments that are what we call Bridge enabled. That is, as Mary said, for a candidate that is unsuccessful in passing one of those specific examinations within a -1 standard error measure, which is approximately 4 to 6 questions on any given assessment. Bridge is, for all intents and purposes, a professional development or professional learning module that the candidate would have to complete with knowledge checks throughout. If they are successful in that area, it would ultimately roll their score up into an alternative passing to get through the actual assessment for licensure. I want to reiterate, that is a professional development module. It is not retaking the assessment as it stands, right? Some states have adopted Bridge. It has been successful in certain areas. Some have not. Some states prefer not to go down the professional development model when they're talking about their assessment portfolio. So it's kind of really up to the department and the boards how they feel around that. I will say that STEPS enablement in the new 8000 series is extremely beneficial to candidates because we can drill down into those subcategories and just allow them to take that very small piece of the assessment and then hopefully roll that into an overall passing. And then all of our assessments moving forward that we regenerate or new assessments that we bring to market will be STEPS enabled. So what you'll see by that is we're taking that STEPS methodology and moving that forward into the future of assessments. The Bridge program, it's a great program. We did bring it in. It was at the recommendation of Connecticut and West Virginia that we start that program. Those states are very heavy utilizers of Bridge. But again, it goes more to that philosophical question of whether or not you want a candidate measuring their readiness by a required assessment or by professional development.
Yeah, I think we have so many miss it by, let's say, 1 point. And even if there was an option, like you mentioned for the other assessment, where you could just drill down to the piece they missed, because we haven't just so many miss it by just a point and it's holding them up on certification, and that's across all areas, core content, PE, and it's holding back a lot of, to me, professionals from becoming certified. And I don't want to take away a test. I don't want to water down a test, but I also look at a test is important to get certification, but just a test doesn't declare an effective teacher at the same time.
It is a baseline of knowledge.
Yeah.
That's really
right.
the expectation.
Yeah.
It's not a designed to predict future success. It is that assessment, that kind of level of what is the basic level of assessment or knowledge we think a beginning teacher needs. I think STEPS, from what the information that we've looked at regarding STEPS and being able to use that modular design and taking a portion of an assessment rather than having to take the whole assessment again, I think for us has been a little more promising.
Mm-hmm.
We did have some concerns about the professional development modules. We have talked to our higher ed partners around the possibility of considering Bridge for Praxis Core, the assessment to get into a teacher preparation program. But because it is a professional development series of modules and not an actual assessment, we've not gone that direction yet. So.
I was curious if there's, and it doesn't, I think you've already answered the question. I don't think there is, but is there any equivalency at all between the professional development modules and the assessment? So maybe along the lines of a student or a candidate misses passing the test in a very particular area. So, you mentioned drilling down on that one area. So is there a professional development equivalency, though it's not an assessment, that would move them toward knowledge in that area? Does that question make sense?
That, I think, is the design of the bridge option. Because it is not an assessment, there's not the same level of test security around
Right,
completing those.
right.
So that is a question that we've had. And again, it's certainly something that we can explore, and if it's the will of the board for us to look at that, we can certainly do so.
Can I ask one more
Yeah,
question?
sure.
Kind of along the same lines. Do you know, or are you aware of an independent benefit of a student using that bridge module? So would you say that independent of maybe filling in an assessment gap, is there something that you think is beneficial to that module that would help the future teacher?
And that's a good question. And honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Bridge is it a year old? About a year old. Pearson has something comparable called Flex. But I think we're just starting to get data in on these programs to be able to take a harder look. But that's a really good question.
Yeah, Mary, you mentioned,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned, looking at alternatives, and although I'm not on this committee, me personally, I want to look at all the alternatives we can. I mean, we've got some folks who would be awesome teachers. They're just, and they know the material. They're just not very good at taking a test. And so we can figure out some way to get those people who would be great teachers, but just somehow or another can't, make that get from here down to a piece of paper. I'm interested in all options if we can.
Okay. And the other thing there is, there are some pretty robust preparation materials available, some at no cost, some at cost, that we know our candidates and our EPPs use. The non-certified teacher pilot is another program that I think we're going to see assist some candidates that are trying to, let's say, get into an alternative route. Getting in that classroom, you learn an incredible amount of content as you are teaching. So I do think we'll see that as a benefit and an option too, to help get some candidates into a program and across that gate of an exam.
Yeah, let's try to fill all of our vacancies.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm with Dr. Hanley. I'd like that information too, for us to kind of explore. I've heard of Bridge before, but I like what I'm hearing today
Yeah.
with your presentation too, that it just gives another option. Because we need as many teachers as possible in our classrooms.
All right.
Are there other questions?
I just have a comment. I find it interesting that we use a bridge program for students in many cases. And it does seem a great possibility to use that bridge program for those teachers to enhance.
Dr. Mathis, I'm assuming that we will approve this as an entity, one block of things, even though they're really three separate items.
There's multiple
Four separate
requests
items.
here. I think, and Barbara, you're the expert here. But I believe you can approve this as the overall changes to the
Changes, okay,
assessment
okay.
program. Typically, that's what's happened in the past.
Okay.
So we will be moving two items forward, one that was presented earlier by Jessica, and then this one.
Correct. We go on the consent agenda if approved.
Right.
Here.
Right. If there are no further questions, is there a motion to approve the South Carolina Certification Assessment Program for 26-27?
I make a motion, we approve the South Carolina Certification Assessment Program as presented for the 26-27 school
Thank you.
year.
Mr. Haney made the motion to approve the South Carolina Assessment Program. Is there a second to the motion?
So moved.
Is
And
that Mr. Harrington?
based on your comments today around bridge and steps, the two kind of different modules or protocols that ETS has available. If you would be interested in a webinar, we can make that available for you, and we're glad to share additional
That'd be good.
information.
That'd be good.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? If not, the motion carries. We have no items for information today. Is there a motion to place the items, I'm going to call it 2 items, even though it's really, sounds like more, I know. The 2 items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
There is a motion that we place them on the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second, Trent.
It is second. The motion has been second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Is there any other business that we need to discuss? If not, we'll move to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Somebody made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second, Trent.
Trent seconded. Anyone opposed? Then the motion carries. Thank you.